How is your Social Security benefit determined? Many people know that Social Security uses your highest 35 earnings years to calculate your benefit, but what many people don't realize is that the more money you earn, the less it contributes to your Social Security benefits. Whoa. Stick around because in this video, I'm revealing the secretive government formula so you can maximize your Social Security benefit. And trust me, you need to know how this works. As of 2023, there were over 33 million small businesses in the United States. That's 99.9% of all businesses. If you own a business, this is a must-watch video because how you pay yourself could significantly impact your future Social Security benefits. You can avoid the common mistake that I see many business owners make with a little planning. So let's dive in. Social Security wasn't designed as a one-size-fits-all program. Instead, it incorporates a progressive formula through what are called bend points. Bend points are a mechanism in this secretive government formula that provide higher benefit payments to lower income earners compared to what they contribute into the Social Security system. This ensures lower income earners have more support from Social Security in retirement than middle class or high income earners. But what's a lower income earner? Some people are working in this country with incomes that barely cover their modest bills. And some people are working who earn much more in a year than they could spend in a lifetime. And there are many, many Americans somewhere in between. Based on the most recent U.S. Census Bureau data, the median household income is $75,580. Based on the definition of the middle class, that income range is anywhere from $49,715 to $149,160. Household incomes above that level are considered upper class because those households have incomes in the top 19% of American households. Interested in seeing how you would stack up? Well, check out this cool calculator from the Pew Research Center. It takes your income, where you live, and how many people are in your family to compare you with the average in your area of the country. I'll provide a link to that cool tool down in the description. Your Social Security benefit payment is based on your highest 35 years of earnings. The earnings are indexed over time and then averaged across all 35 years. If you haven't worked 35 years, the Social Security Administration just throws in zeros for those missing years, which obviously drags down your average. They take this annual average and convert it to a monthly figure. This is what's called your average indexed monthly earnings, or AIM. AIM is the foundation for applying those bend points in the secret formula that I mentioned and provides the basis for calculating your primary insurance amount, or PIA, which is the amount you receive at your full retirement age. For anyone born in 1960 or later, who is most likely watching this video, full retirement age is 67 years old. While you can turn on Social Security payments at any time after you turn 62 years old, 67 is the age used to calculate your full retirement age, or FRA. Okay, now that you know how your AIM is calculated, I can reveal the secret government formula that determines how much Social Security you will receive. Your Social Security primary insurance amount is the sum of 3 separate percentages of your average indexed monthly earnings. These portions are determined in the year when you turn 62 years old, you become disabled, or you die, whichever happens first. The goal is to weight lower income amounts with a greater return than higher income amounts. So where are these Social Security bend points that are so important to the formula? Well, in 2025, the 3 bend points are the first $1,226 of monthly earnings, the amount between $1,226 and $7,391, and the amount over $7,391 of monthly earnings. For the first $1,226 of monthly AIM earnings, you get 90% of those back in your Social Security benefit payment. That's a huge baseline. For AIM earnings between $1,227 and $7,391 a month, you only receive 32% of that amount back. And finally, for earnings between $7,392 and $14,675 a month, which is the AIM cap in 2025, you receive just 15% back of that amount. If you have an AIM that is higher than $14,675 per month, you get nothing back on that income. You can probably already see how this system favors people with lower lifetime earnings, and that's by design to provide a retirement floor for retirees. Let's convert these monthly amounts to annual figures so you can get a better idea of what that looks like. You receive 90% back on the first $14,724 of AIM that you have.
You receive 32% back on AIM between $14,724 and $88,692.
And you receive 15% back on AIM between $88,692 and $176,100. And you get 0% on anything above that. In order to figure out your monthly Social Security benefit, you add up these three amounts and that becomes your benefit. Let's go through some real-world examples to see this in action. But before I do, please take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. You're on the #1 personal finance channel on YouTube, so make sure that you hit that little subscribe button right down here in the right-hand corner. It really helps YouTube know that this is quality content. Okay, now let's look at some examples. Example 1 is a modest earner, $14,724 annually on average. In 2025, if your career average earnings came out to just $14,724 annually, the lowest bend point, you could expect to get 90% of that amount, or $13,251 per year, which is roughly $1,100 a month. Moving up to a middle income example, if you average $75,000 annually,
you would get 90% of the first $14,724, or $13,251, just like the first individual. You would then add to that 32% of the next $60,276, the amount of AIM over $14,724, but below $88,692. That is $19,288 and totals $32,539 per year, roughly $2,711 per month. You'll notice that $32,539 is 43% of $75,000.
A significantly lower percentage than the modest earner in example 1. Now let's look at someone who consistently earned at or above the Social Security wage cap, with an average of $200,000 annually. How is their Social Security payment calculated?
Well, just like modest earner 1, they receive 90% of the first $14,724 or $13,251. Next, they receive 32% of AIM over $14,724 up to $88,692. So they get 32% of $73,968 or $23,669 added to the first amount. Lastly, they get 15% of the income above $88,692 but below the $176,100 wage cap. That number is $87,408 in 2025. 15% of $87,408 equals $13,111. And remember that last roughly $24,000 of their income, they're receiving zero benefits on. $13,251 plus $23,669 plus $13,111, which equals $50,031 as their annual benefit. Roughly $4,169 per month. $50,031 is roughly 25% of $200,000, an even lower percentage than in example 2.
If you take a step back, you can really see how this math works. The middle income earner in example 2 makes 5 times more than the modest earner in AIM and lifetime earnings. But their Social Security benefit isn't 5 times larger. It's larger, but only modestly larger. You can observe the same thing when comparing the middle income earner and the maximum earner. The maximum earner in that example earns more than double the amount of maximum lifetime earnings, but their Social Security payment isn't twice as high. The moral of the story is that the more you earn, the less in a percentage of your income you receive back in the form of Social Security. But that's by design. The purpose of Social Security is to provide a safety net for everyone so your potential benefits diminish as you make more money. So what are some takeaways here? Well, it all comes down to your average indexed earnings over a 35-year career. In order to max out the Social Security benefit, your average earnings over a 35-year career indexed for inflation must be greater than the income cap when you're looking at starting your benefit anytime between 62 and 70. If you head over to ssa.gov and you log into your account, if you don't have one, you should start an account, you can see your earnings history to get a good idea of where you stand. But is maxing out your AIM earnings always the smartest move? Remember in the beginning of the video where I said business owners need to watch this video? Well, now that you understand how Social Security bend points work, it's time to think about your Social Security strategy. Most employees don't have a choice in how they're paid. Employees typically get a W-2 salary and maybe a bonus. Social Security takes 12.4% of that money every single year for future Social Security payments up to a certain income cap. In 2025, that cap is $176,100. As a business owner, you have control over how you are paid. Do you pay yourself a salary? How much of a salary do you pay yourself? Business owners are required to pay themselves at least a reasonable salary for what they are doing as an employee of the business. What's reasonable varies for each business. Here's a strategy to think about. What if a reasonable salary for you is the second bend point at $88,692? That means, in my opinion, you're getting the lion's share of a future Social Security benefit, the two highest returns on your money. But you're foregoing the income above the second bend point, where you only receive 15% credit for those earnings and 0% credit for anything over the cap. What if you paid yourself a dividend that didn't have Social Security taxes associated with it? That's right. What if you paid yourself a salary and a dividend? That's essentially what S-Corp businesses are. And what if you took 12.4% of that dividend amount and set it aside in your own Social Security fund? Instead of giving it to the government, you instead set it aside for your own retirement and invest it yourself. Ooh, that's next level thinking. Of course, there are all kinds of tax and legal hurdles to be aware of, and you should consult your own tax, legal, and financial advisors before making any business structure decisions. But it's definitely something to think about. Do you own a business and are looking to level up your financial planning, take advantage of strategies like this? You can get started working with me today by visiting celestialwm.com and clicking the Start Here tab to schedule a complimentary call. Still not sure you want to talk? Well, head over to the Resource Center and learn more about my financial planning process by watching my 35-minute complimentary training. And check out this video next for even more ways to supercharge your net worth.